Order 66, otherwise known as Clone Protocol 66, was one of 150 orders to be enacted by the Grand Army of the Republic. Upon order from the Supreme Chancellor, the clones would obey to the interests of the Republic and eliminate any Jedi that breached these interests. After killing Jedi Master Mace Windu and anointing his new apprentice Darth Vader, Supreme Chancellor Palpatine ordered Vader to prepare for a siege of the Jedi Temple before executing Order 66. All around the galaxy, unsuspecting Jedi Knights, Padawans and Masters began to fall at the hands of the clones, decimating the Jedi Order and allowing the Sith to rule the galaxy. But what if Palpatine accidentally executed Order 65? How would Palpatine be able to correct his mistake? What would happen to the Jedi Temple? As you're about to see, this minute difference will have a significant impact on the galaxy. Requesting the former Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, now Sith apprentice Darth Vader, to march to the Jedi Temple, Palpatine received a message from one of the clones of the 501st Legion that they were in position. Switching on his holoprojector, the shimmering frame of Commander Cody appeared, and Palpatine executed Order 65. Cody was momentarily confused, before accepting the instruction and deactivating his hologram. Cody stood in the centre of the battle of Utapau, wondering what the Supreme Chancellor was thinking. Whilst Order 65 could only be triggered by a vote in the Galactic Senate or the Security Council, Palpatine did have control over the Senate, but that failed to explain why he wanted himself to be arrested or killed. Shaken from his thoughts by one of the other officers of the 212th Battalion, all of the clones began to robotically move back towards their ships, leaving Obi-Wan to face the remaining Separatist forces. Obi-Wan stood in bemusement, deflecting the hits from the droids, but watching his troopers walk away. Conflicted between finishing the mission and finding out what was happening, Obi-Wan decided to jump into a ship and head for the skies. Getting in touch with former Jedi Padawan Ahsoka Tano, she had noticed this bizarre behaviour from her own division of the 501st Legion, jumping into their own gunships and leaving her on the cruiser. Tracking the gunships, they were also en route to Coruscant, and Obi-Wan requested for the other Jedi to abort their missions if possible and return to their home. Back on Coruscant, Palpatine sat sanctimoniously in his office, watching the events unfold from his window. One of his personal royal guards knocked at his door, and Palpatine opened it, curious as to the nature of the call. The guard reported of some confusing behaviour from the clones, and Palpatine chose to investigate himself. Taking a speeder with Masamida, Palpatine intended to hold a Senate meeting, but that would have to be put on hold as he departed for the Jedi Temple. But just as he left, clones were magnetically tracking his every move, some firing blaster bolts at the underside of his speeder. Trying to get in touch with the closest commander, who was Commander Rappo, there was no response from the supposedly obedient clones. Palpatine, still firmly believing that he hadn't made a mistake, hopped to the ground below. The clones were soon all over his location, some firing with immense intensity, and some attempting an arrest. Palpatine is obliged to get rid of his disguise as a politician, and used a combination of force powers and his lightsaber to fend off the clones. Leaping on top of a tall residential building, the Sith Lord contacted his apprentice. Vader is busy scything his way through the Jedi when his master orders him to help him. Abandoning his task, he had been so focused he had not realised the disappearance of his clones, and he rushed out to see his master defending. Palpatine and Vader make a quick escape, and Vader is ordered to Mustafar to eliminate the Separatist alliance. First though, he flew into Padme's apartment, but the space normally reserved for guest speeders was already taken. Angered, Vader ignited his blade and charged inside. The previously hidden Padme emerged with Anakin Skywalker's Padawan Ahsoka Tano. Defending Padme with her two lightsabers, she pleaded with what remained of the light of her master to stop this madness. Padme bravely stepped out with a blaster in her hand and moved towards Vader. Vader deactivated his lightsaber and faced Padme, boasting how the clones had turned against Palpatine, but how he was powerful enough to save her, and that together they could rule the galaxy. Ahsoka stared at her master with a mix of pity and puzzlement. She had not known her master to have such a desire for power, but she knew he would do it if it meant saving others. Suddenly, the room began to rumble, and the walls shook from their foundations. With no time to find out the cause, Anakin carried Padme into his speeder, and Ahsoka tailed him closely, glancing backwards to see the block of apartments collapsing to the ground. Curious as to where they were going, Ahsoka jumped from her speeder to a nearby starship, and followed them across the galaxy. Back on Coruscant, Jedi Master Obi-Wan Kenobi had just landed in a Jedi Temple hangar, having been obliged to leave the battle on Utapau. As ships flew above him, he spotted the distinctive starfighter of Ahsoka Tano chasing another ship, adding to his already confused mood. Igniting his lightsaber, the clones were not responding to any of his cries for help, so he followed them to their focal point. Hiding behind a pillar, Obi-Wan was blinded by a bright light, which was the Force signing of Palpatine. Obi-Wan had never felt such an intensity and darkness in the Force, and he knew he would struggle to defend against it, even if he was not fatigued from fighting Grievous. With the battle in a stalemate, Obi-Wan is relieved to see several other Jedi gunships floating to the surface, but inside most of them were more waves of clones. Going back to the Jedi Temple, Obi-Wan hears a voice he did not wish to hear again. With a great reluctance, Obi-Wan turned his head away from the Jedi Temple to face his old adversary in Maul. In the chaos, the Zabrak had been freed from his Mandalorian cage, and he wanted blood, even without his lightsaber. Lifting Obi-Wan into the air, Obi-Wan cursed himself on anticipating the move, feeling his breathing begin to suffer. With his lightsaber dropped to the ground, Obi-Wan was struggling to find a way out, before he saw a collection of corpses flying towards Maul. The body struck the side of the robotic legs of the renegade Sith, momentarily distracting him and releasing Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan dropped to the floor and picked up his lightsaber. All thoughts of going to the Jedi Temple gone, Obi-Wan charged at Maul. Maul used some nearby scrap to quickly defend himself, using clone armor to distract the Jedi Master. Sending a powerful kick at Obi-Wan, he is sent backwards into a pile of clones, but recovers to his feet. Allowing Maul to attack him, Obi-Wan adopted Qui-Gon's form, and saw an overconfident smirk in Maul's face. As Maul lunged towards him with a sharp implement, Obi-Wan cut through his foe, this time vertically. Observing Maul's life ebb away, Obi-Wan heard an even more unpleasant voice than Maul's. Raising his head with great trepidation, Obi-Wan sees Sidious with his fingertips outstretched. Before he could lift his lightsaber, Obi-Wan was hit by an extremely powerful wave of a force-signing attack, bathing his body in a sparkling light. Obi-Wan collapsed to the floor unconscious, and Sidious showed gratitude to Obi-Wan for eliminating Maul without his efforts, then scooped up his fallen lightsaber. Lifting Obi-Wan with the Force, he ordered his personal guards to move him to a secret location. Entering the Jedi Temple, Sidious sets about completing what he had stopped his apprentice from doing. Away from Coruscant, the former Jedi Padawan Ahsoka Tano was still pursuing Darth Vader and Padme Amidala. Ahsoka recognizes that the planet they were approaching is Mustafar, and she could already feel the darkness. Entering its atmosphere, Ahsoka saw Vader land on a platform, and then navigate the lava maze that decorated the surface of the planet. Landing beside his ship, she entered his starship and found Padme in a daze. Ahsoka and Padme were both worried about what remained of Anakin. They'd seen him flash to the dark side before, but this could be a step too far. Padme asked Ahsoka to pursue him, leaving her at the hands of the onboard medical droids, as she was due to give birth at any moment. Ahsoka dashes out, jumping and weaving through the maze, and senses Vader's force presence growing closer. Slashing at a control panel, the entrance to a large facility slides upwards, and Ahsoka runs inside. From a distance, Ahsoka saw Vader obliterating the former Separatist alliance, completing his massacre with Newt Gunray as his final victim. After Vader had deactivated his lightsaber, Ahsoka tells him that Padme was about to give birth, and he needed to hurry. Ahsoka could see Vader's hesitancy in his flashing in his eyes, but he chose to accept the information and go to his ship. The medical droids were situated around Padme, and she gave birth to Luke and Leia. Seeing the light in the light of the Sith apprentice, Padme felt hope that Anakin would soon return. Vader then received a transmission from his master, who confirmed that he was in a safe location after being pursued by a whole crowd of Jedi and clones, as well as now holding Obi-Wan. Vader was unsure of how to react to the news, but reported that he had dealt with the Separatists. Sidious praised his apprentice for his efforts, and soon he would arrive on Mustafar to discuss the next stage of their operation. Padme and Ahsoka were concerned for the safety of themselves and their children. However, the dark side Anakin told them not to worry, and to fly back to Coruscant, whilst he did something about Sidious. Not sure what to believe, Ahsoka knew better than to argue, and flew back to her former home. Travelling through hyperspace, Padme slept soundly alongside Luke and Leia, but Ahsoka was in a constant state of paranoia. Still thinking about the fate of the clones under her command, Ahsoka uses the help of R2-D2 to extend her signal to Coruscant. Reaching out to the Republic's military base, one of the station clones received her message, and passed it on to any surviving member of the 501st. But the clones soon reported that they were too occupied chasing the Supreme Chancellor. The cogs in Ahsoka's mind were operating in overdrive, and as much as she hated to do it, she woke up Padme. Hearing Ahsoka's theories about Palpatine, Padme showed no sign of the fatigue she was suffering, and began to get in touch with various politicians who she knew to be certain allies. Most of them are already in Coruscant, awaiting Palpatine's upcoming speech after his trip to Mustafar, and like Ahsoka, they had theories about Palpatine and the Grand Army of the Republic. Whilst none had the power to change the orders within the clone inhibitor chips, they could remove him from power. As the majority of Palpatine's allies had fallen in his own hands or Vader's, Padme's allies tried to call for a vote of no confidence. But Padme asked them to wait until Palpatine had been captured, or the clones would stop their pursuit of the Sith Lord. Arriving back on Coruscant, Padme left Ahsoka with the children, and hobbled back to the Senate building. Senator Organa was already waiting for her, and now she waited nervously for the fate of the Sith. At last, Padme received a message from Ahsoka, and the whole Senate hushed into a silence. Back in Padme's apartment, Ahsoka had been trying her best to get the twins to rest. After doing so, Ahsoka could not sit around waiting for news of events on Mustafar. Going to the nearest holoprojector, R2-D2 finds a way through to Grandmaster Yoda. The normally serene master looks exhausted, his robes a charred mess, a result of a trip to Mustafar. Yoda states that Sidious has escaped the planet with Obi-Wan, but that Vader was either joining or pursuing the pair. The piece of news did not reassure Ahsoka, knowing she would have to say something to Padme and the Senate. Yoda tells her to reassure the Senate that the Sith were on the back foot. Ahsoka bows to the Jedi Master, before gathering her words. Reconnecting to Padme, Ahsoka relays Yoda's news, and the whole Senate erupts. Voting immediately commenced for the Supreme Chancellor to be stripped of his title in absentia, but little did they know of the massive risk being taken by the Jedi. Back on board a Republic gunship, Yoda was exhausted in the wild chase of Sidious. The Force had not been helpful in decoding what had happened with the clones, but at least it had not turned upon the Jedi. Travelling alongside some of the surviving Jedi Masters, an officer points Yoda to the navigation computer, and it turned out they were going to Coruscant again. Yoda broke into action, conveying the news to Ahsoka, as all of the senators and politicians were now in danger. With the twins to take care of, Ahsoka could not do much, other than warn the Jedi Temple of the threat. Sidious finally landed, but with his apprentice in close pursuit. Sidious ran towards the Senate building, but his path is blocked by a large tower toppling in front of him. Meeting the cold eyes of his apprentice with his own lifeless stare, Sidious had no time to reflect on both the betrayal of the clones and the betrayal of his apprentice, as Vader surged towards him. The cackles of Sidious screamed through the air, their jaws shifting them to Sidious's ship. Unlocking several doors, Vader felt Obi-Wan stirring from his bindings close by. Evading Sidious for a moment, he cut the bindings off of the Jedi Master before providing him with his lightsaber, which was on a nearby table. Going back to the Sith Lord, Vader was on the back foot. His initial relentless attacks were beginning to fade, but Sidious was not stopping. Vader again moved the battle, this time outside towards the recently arriving gunships. Sidious now faced Vader, the Jedi, and the clones. Using the Force to move all of the gunships towards each other, the air around them swelled from the power, and all of Sidious's opponents ducked for cover. All except one. Behind the Sith Lord, Obi-Wan had crawled through his pain, and had made it all the way to the outside of the ship. Slithering down the ramp, he threw his lightsaber with all of his might at the Sith Lord, bringing an end to the tornado of destruction caused. The Jedi and clones all looked to see the cause of the stoppage, and find Obi-Wan crawling. The clones start celebrating, and Vader's eyes flickered and returned to their blue. Leaving the other Jedi to repair the mess caused, Anakin rushed over to the Senate building, just as the senators emerged. Anakin just couldn't figure out why everyone was defensively surrounding Padme. Padme was delighted to announce that Palpatine had been voted out, and not that this was of any importance anymore, and that she was one of the candidates to fill his role. Ordering several clones to transport the senators to their temporary apartments, the clones obeyed the command of the Jedi, now free of Order 65. Anakin carries Obi-Wan back to the remains of the Jedi Temple, placing him in the hands of the capable healers, and then flew to Padme's apartment. Watching Ahsoka and Padme tend to Luke and Leia, Anakin wanted to spend time with them, but one matter still gnawed at his mind. What had happened to the clones? An equally curious Ahsoka decides to join her master, and together, they search for the nearest Republic database, which turned out to be in Ahsoka's cruiser. There they replay the transmission of Order 65 from Sidious, and Anakin realises the Fives have been correct to be suspicious of the clone inhibitor chips. Summoning Rex, who had somehow survived the recent chaos, his inhibitor chip is removed, and with the help of R2-D2, Reed in surprise as all of the orders have been tied to the Supreme Chancellor. They needed to get rid of these chips as quickly as possible, even if Padme was made the Supreme Chancellor. They had been one order number away from their entire order being destroyed. With all of the clones under their command, Anakin leads them back to their home of Kamino. Barging his way inside, Anakin and Ahsoka begin a mass arrest of all of the Kaminoans who have been involved in the plot against the Jedi. After the arrests, the Jedi stood outside of the facility, observing the happy clones freed from their internal prison. Receiving a transmission from his recovering master, Obi-Wan was looking sternly at his Padawan. The word had quickly spread of the marriage between Anakin and Senator Amidala, and Anakin was in trouble again. Watching several clone gunships disappear, Anakin hoped that his role in saving the galaxy would keep him with the Jedi and the clones. That is it for What If Palpatine Accidentally Executed Order 65. If you enjoyed this, please like this video, turn on that notification bell, and if you're new to this channel or my other channel, subscribe for more tips. And as always, leave a comment on what if you'd like to see next and how I can improve my videos. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.